Our Wake-Up Keynote from Brian Schatz, Chair of the Democratic Party of the state of Hawaii. His special qualification is that he is in technology, and when he was in the legislature a few years ago, he was a distinguished and notable champion of tech.
Thank you very much, Jay. It's really a pleasure to be here and to offer my view about the basic question, which is whether or not tech in Hawaii is keeping up with the outside world. And my basic answer to that is that it depends what we do next. There are data points that are very positive, and there are data points that are very distressing. But it really does depend on the next legislative session and the next couple of years in private sector activity. We're all aware of the danger of capital flight, and it's happening, in my opinion, for two reasons. First, because of a government that is inconsistent in terms of its relationship with the private sector and its unwillingness to commit over the long run to a subsidy program that was designed to transform the economy. And the second is the capital flight that is occurring everywhere because there's just less capital and people are holding on to their cash. The first data point that I'd like to offer from the Hawaii Science and Tech Council is we are behind the mainland in terms of the concentration of tech in our economy. So that's the bad news. The good news is that we are ahead of the mainland in terms of the rate at which we are catching up. We are growing our tech sector faster than the mainland, but we have a longer way to go. You may not know, but my my vocation is that I run a nonprofit organization. And one of the things that I've seen recently in the last 6 months is that people are coming to us not destitute, in the sort of traditional way, not recent immigrants, not down on their luck for generation after generation, but an Aloha Airlines employee recently laid off, has a mortgage, has kids who have graduated college, and is in tears because this is the first time she's ever asked anybody other than her family for anything. She donated every year for the last 25 years to Helping Hands Community Clearinghouse Fund, and then she came to us asking for something. And the shame that goes along with being middle class, essentially, but needing a subsidy is something that we all need to really wrap our minds around. This is not, you know this is not happening to one rung of our society economically. This is beating all of us up. You can interpret data points however you want. The point is, what do we do next? We do need a better articulated strategy and a government that is willing to stick with it. What businesses need first and foremost from government is stability and commitments that are real. I offer the following 4 principles. First, at least temporarily, we have to stop focusing on subsidies and the false choice between a balanced budget and a strong tech sector. Secondly, I think we all, and Jay mentioned this, we need to turn the temperature down a little bit. The people at the legislature are professional politicians, and what I mean by that is that they're not easily intimidated, they are not easily swayed by anger, and they every day and increasingly make decisions that make one group of people happy and one group of people unhappy. Actually, nowadays it's make one group of people unhappy and another group of people more unhappy. But really, they're left with bad choices and worse choices, and screaming at them is not going to help. They will be cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, and it will occupy all of their time, all of their emotional and intellectual energy. And then they will emerge from the legislative session trying to go back to usually you go back to your district and sell all the wonderful things that you just did. They will have done very few wonderful things because it is such a tough year. What we need to do is give them something to run on and give all of us something to believe in. Give all of us a plan for a better way out of this. Why does this matter? Because we want an economy that allows our children to live here and have a life. That's what it comes down to. Because we reject the premise that we have to have such low-paying jobs that middle class and lower middle class people have to work and then receive government subsidies just to make it. We reject that premise. There is a better way. That's what we're talking about. And we need to stay there and linger there and say it again and again, and then get into the details. But remember, most policymakers are Jane of all trades, master of none. They're trained to be generalists. They're trained to understand the overall economic system. They are not, they shouldn't be asked to be technically savvy in every individual area. What they do know is that their constituents want a better economy. What they do know is that people whose children are graduating from college right now are trying to figure out how in the world they are going to live in Hawaii and stay close to their parents. Technology, for instance, is, in my view, really the only way that we're going to have a more lean, efficient government with well-paid employees and a customer service-oriented state and county government. Technology is the only way that we're going to solve our energy crisis. Technology is the only way that our kids and our kids' kids are going to be able to live here and thrive. We can be the hope, the light at the end of the tunnel. If we're going to be that light at the end of the tunnel, we have to start acting like it. We have to start believing that. We have to have a smile on our face, a spring in our step, no animosity towards policymakers who have difficult choices. We are there to help. We are there to show them a better way. One of the things that I've observed over the last 2 years is that hard-nosed businessmen and women are now focusing very seriously on renewable energy. And it's gone from a sort of environmental question to a private sector, boy, there's a lot of money to be made in this area question. And that, I think, is a really, really hopeful sign, because until the capitalists are involved, then you're not going to, subsidies and regulatory changes and policy changes are all, preliminary steps to actually transforming our energy economy. Now that people are recognizing that there's money to be made, I think that's one of the most hopeful signs on the private sector side. And then on the public sector side, we're in a very strong position with Senator Inouye, now the third longest serving United States senator in American history, and substantially in charge of appropriations for the United States government. And he has indicated an interest in the issue of energy and energy infrastructure. And so I think that's one of the areas where we may have a real competitive advantage. There's a lot of good private sector activity. We obviously have the natural resources. We're on the road towards making the regulatory reforms that are necessary, and we have an opportunity to maximize federal dollars. One of the very interesting things that happened in our unsuccessful efforts with respect to 221, which was important, was that the public sector labor unions did not allow Act 221 to be played against their needs. Finding that common ground is actually not as difficult as one might expect it to be. Sometimes it just comes down to building those relationships across sectors that you might not assume to have overlapping needs. But the interesting thing about where we are now, politically, is nobody is satisfied with the status quo. Not labor, not management, not Republicans, not Democrats, not rich, not poor. Nobody thinks that what we're doing right now is working very well. And so in that crisis comes opportunity, because now everyone is ready to sort of sit down and figure out how to totally rethink our government and our private sector over the long run. Again, I want to separate that question from the immediate budget crisis. And to the extent that you mix one with the other, I think you'll solve neither. It has to be dealt with consecutively. But the really good news is that everybody is ready for change.